Hey, what's up, everybody? This week, I had the pleasure of sitting down with Jonathan Borden, double bassist from the Buffalo Philharmonic Orchestra, classically trained musician, went to Juilliard, like one of the best musicians in the country. This guy is unbelievable, but he's super cool, super down to earth. He's chosen to stay here in Buffalo because how much he loves the community and loves the BPO. Wears a lot of hats for the BPO. I mean, we talked about everything from his journey growing up to what it's like to be on the BPO. You know, we talked about a lot of different things, and I think you're going to find it very interesting. Like, this is not your typical classically trained musician. I think it's going to break a lot of stereotypes. You're going to really like talking to him. He was a pleasure. He was like one of those guys, one of those guests where they walk out and you're like, wow, that was awesome. He was great. So check it out. I think you'll really enjoy it, even if you don't know anything about orchestra or music in general. I think you're going to love it. As always, this episode's brought to you by my law firm, Richmond Bona. We can't keep bringing angles to you without them, so we appreciate all the hard work that people do in our community and for our clients. And as always, if you like these conversations, please like, subscribe, follow us. You know the deal, but we really appreciate it. So enjoy. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, of course.
Dude, I'm excited.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you. I was trying to think. I was thinking about this conversation, and I was almost like a little intimidated because like music to me is almost like a foreign language, like something that I really enjoy, but don't truly understand.
Yeah.
But I saw somewhere you talking about how like anybody can really, get into music. If you have the love for it, you can be good at it. And I figured we'd start off with, I would just like to get your your take on music in general and just I just want to keep it I just want to keep it open there.
Yeah, I get this all the time as a classical musician, especially when people find out that I went to Juilliard. They get really intimidated all of a sudden about like, oh, well, like music. I mean, I don't know anything about music. And this is a big thing for me is that we're actually all really experts in music. We just don't know it. There's a very small difference between what I know about music and what you know about music, and it's basically just like vocabulary about like how music works. And I have a vocabulary that I've learned about how to talk about music. Mm-hmm. But I mean, humans are all very musical people, so you know more about music than I think you would let on, just about the basics of music. And so I don't like to think that I'm an expert in music per se. I think that I just trained really hard in a small sliver of music, in classical music in particular. But I'm a student of so many other kinds of music. I listen to all sorts of music. When I was in high school, I was listening to all sorts of rap, and then metal, and now I'm electronic music and all sorts of things. So I would say, as a classical musician, it's don't feel like there's an expert and there's not. I think everyone is fluent in music. As a language. I think you brought it up as kind of a language. Learning an instrument is a different thing. That's like learning to play a sport.
Sure, yeah.
Right? nobody's born knowing how to play soccer or football, right? Mm-hmm. So learning to play bass, as an example, that takes, a lot of time, to 10,000 hours proverbially, right? So if you're, if you want to learn more about music, there's all sorts of resources available, but I mean, just listening tells you everything you really need to know,
Yeah. It's, I still think it's intimidating, but what you said makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
When you think about, you're maybe like going back to when you were a little kid, what drew you to music? Was there like a moment, or like, I'm always curious how people who get to like your level of success, like got started?
It's a tough question. I definitely grew up in a musical family. And when you're growing up, you don't know what that means. You can only think about that in retrospect, right? So my dad plays guitar, but he just, not professionally, just, for fun. He's a great guitar player. And I think when he was younger, he had a dream of like, being in the next Led Zeppelin or whatever, and even got a minor in music, I think, at school, but ended up working for IBM. So I had, my parents were just both, kind of appreciators perhaps of classical music, but I wasn't like drowned in it or anything. My extended family, they're all very musical. family Christmas has a recital, which again, when you're a kid, you don't know is weird, but you know, it's a little bit strange. I just thought that's what everybody did. So, you know, a lot of singers, a lot of, you know, like music enjoyers. But, you know, the idea of pursuing music as a career wasn't necessarily like the vibe. You know, I know a lot of people in the orchestra whose families, you know, their parents were in that orchestra and taught at these schools and just like very much in that culture. I didn't really necessarily come from that, but I had music around me a lot. And then, you know, my dad playing the sweet, you know, red Fender Stratocaster. It's just like, I'm like, what, 7? I'm like, yeah, I want to try that out. Right? So I played electric bass because I had to be different, of course. Can't play guitar. And then it just, you know, 4th grade, everyone picks an instrument. Upright bass was the weird one, the cool one, again, having to be different. So I picked that. And then I just kind of, you know, I'm a lucky person. I came from a place where, you know, I kind of got access to music lessons a lot. You know, anything that I was kind of interested in, my parents were supportive. So I loved soccer. I mean, for the longest time, I wanted to be a professional soccer player, right? That was like the dream. But, you know, I kept playing bass and I was like doing okay at it. And then when I was in high school, sometimes it's just an influential teacher that will,
for sure,
you know, change your world, frankly. So I went to this, we call them summer festivals, but they're really band camp. I went to this festival out in Maine for 3 weeks where all I wanted to do was play soccer, but, you know, I was there to play bass and play in an orchestra and play chamber music and these things. And the teacher that I had there, his name is Kurt Maroki. He just played bass differently than I had ever seen it played. And I was like, oh, like it just like you saw all of a sudden like there's this other level up there that you can, if you want to work towards it, you can go get there. And all of a sudden it was like, well, now I'm kind of interested. Pair that with like playing some of the world's greatest music in an orchestra. It just kind of like, all of a sudden it's like, you know, maybe I should give this a shot. I knew people that they knew that they were going to go into music when they were like 10,
right?
You know, for me, I don't know, maybe I wasn't mature enough yet to know it, but I was like around 16 or so where I was like, you know, I'm going to give this a shot and see what happens. So
when you came out of the festival and you have like, it sounds like this like new focus, right? Oh yeah, I'm gonna go for it.
Yeah.
You know, it's very comparable, I'm sure, to like a young man or woman who's like, I'm like all in on sports. Like I'm gonna give everything I got. What did that look like for you? Like what was like, because I think it's always interesting to hear people talk about what they had to sacrifice to get there. And it kind of leads us into talking about Juilliard.
Yeah. A sacrifice is a good way of putting it, you know. I love watching tennis players. I'm a tennis player myself. I vibe so much with professional tennis players because of the singular nature, singles players in particular. Yeah. The singular nature of their career, right? Yeah. Like they're out there alone, you know, grinding, right? And it is a lot like that. I think the reason I vibe with them is because the grind to get really good at an instrument and get a job playing is kind of like that, where you lock yourself in a practice room for long periods of time, basically. You live and breathe it, and you know, everything kind of gets filtered through that lens. So I remember, like, you know, my family would want to go on some vacation somewhere, and I would be like, I can't not practice for 5 days. Are you kidding me? You know? And they would be like, what's wrong with you? You know, like, but you know, that's how it was. It was just like, once I made that decision to like really go into it, it was like, I have to put in these hours, and it was enjoyable, frankly. I mean, there's something really rewarding about that grind, and just like, you know, what you have to do every day, that singular focus is, you know, comforting in a way. You know, there's no questions about what you're supposed to do. You know what you're supposed to do. It's just about putting in the time.
When it comes to your focus, how did you approach that? Meaning, was your first focus on, say, getting to maybe Juilliard, or was it, hey, I want to, whatever it takes to get to like a world famous orchestra, like where you are today? Like how did you approach that?
Yeah, the end goal was always to play in an orchestra, because the North Star of all of this was like, you know, I played Beethoven's Ninth Symphony once at that same festival, and it was like a religious experience in a way. I'm I'm not a very religious person, so I can't say if it's the same thing, but for me, it felt like
Yeah,
that, you know? And, so to me, it was like, I have to surround myself with this music on a regular basis, just clear as day. So, the school and the training was a means to that end. But yeah, it made me think of a funny story, the sacrifice. Like, I remember as just a silly story around the small sacrifices I had to make. When I was in high school, I grew up in the Connecticut area. They had this program at Juilliard where you could go on Saturdays while you were in high school. They called it pre-college. Mm-hmm. And I would study with a good teacher and play in a good orchestra and do ear training and all these music-related things. My high school prom, I had this girlfriend that went to a different high school that I met at one of those all-state things. Mm-hmm. She invited me to her prom, and it was like, that's awesome. And then I found out that like I had to go to pre-college that day, and I think we had a concert that night or something like that. There's like no way I could get out of it. And, it was like, it stunk.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
But it was, that was like that's like just an example of the kind of sacrifice, it's just like, this is like the long game. Like, this is what I have to focus on.
Yeah. I mean, like when you have that passion,
Yeah.
And you have that focus, like it's just inevitable. Like you're going to have to skip on things that most people can imagine skipping on.
Yeah.
I think that's what makes it special, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's worth it. You know, like you have that passion that makes those kind of tough decisions, frankly, not as tough.
For sure.
Yeah.
I don't want to skip around too much, but you just made me think of something. So, you talked about, locking yourself in a room, like having this focus and saying, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get myself onto, an orchestra. But it's to me, and maybe I'm thinking about it wrong, but you tell me, but like, it's kind of interesting because like you're locking yourself in a room. It's like this individualistic, like tennis-like effort, but to get onto a team.
Yeah.
Right. So it's
That's
like we're typically, it's like, and I was a hockey player, like I'm practicing with my teammates to get onto better teams. Like I'd love to hear like your perspective on that. It's interesting.
As I was saying the tennis thing, I was thinking about that too, actually. It's just like, you do all this effort to get on that team. That's part of the training too, like I think, if I were like a hockey player, you're probably spending a lot of time with your stick skills and your skating skills and just, your off the ice training and cardio and all these important things. But like, you have to have that intelligence of, call it hockey intelligence, right? Mm-hmm. Of like moving around, where your teammates are, you see a shape of the defense, you see an opportunity, circumstantial awareness of like it's power play or not, all those kinds of things. Mm-hmm. You get that experience in school, playing in orchestras, and I actually think the better experience is if you get to play in small, we call them chamber music groups, so groups of like 3 people to 8 people where there's no conductor, and you really have to be able to listen to what your other colleagues are playing and play in time with them. I mean, conductors will show you a beat pattern, but like it's really about like what you hear and match up with that, and this is almost like a suggestion in a way. So you do have to train those skills too of like being on the team, and musical awareness. And it's interesting, like I didn't have to try very hard to get that experience. That's like forced on you.
Okay. Yeah.
But the individual skills in the practice room, it doesn't matter how good your musical intelligence is. If you're playing out of tune or if you're playing out of time, it doesn't really matter. If you can't hit the net, right?
Yeah.
Great, where your teammates are, but where you're on the ice to score goals.
Yeah,
right?
for sure. Yeah,
it's that I think that would be the closest analogy.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you had a moment where you described it as like your version of a religious experience. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit more on that? Like, because I got to imagine, like, even fast forward to today, being on the stage, for the BPO, there's got to be like adrenaline, like rushing through your veins, Dude. Like you're trying to like keep in check, like you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a strange thing that like I get emotional at work a lot, and every time my girlfriend always kind of chuckles every time I call it work, because I mean it is a job.
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
It's work. I'm going to work.
Yeah.
But like my office is Kleinhans.
Yeah.
And my workplace is being on stage playing Beethoven or the music of Led Zeppelin or a movie score. All sorts of different things. It's I think the the symphony orchestra is one of like the greatest inventions of Western civilization. It's an incredibly powerful machine that I don't think enough people have gotten to truly experience. When you're in the middle of it, it feels like a religious experience in the same way that like if you're out in nature and you're like coming face to face with like an incredible mountain is. It's just this like the size of it is kind of beyond comprehension. And there's something about like the amplifying power of like having, 75 people playing and being in the center of that. I actually think that like where you are makes a huge difference. Being within that organism, it's like something bigger than you can comprehend. And I would say that's kind of what I mean by the religious experience part of it.
I'm glad I asked you that question because that made me think about like the first time I went out west and like plopped myself in front of the Rockies and you're just like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like,
it's different out there.
Yeah.
I've driven out there a few times from here actually.
Oh wow.
It's a 2-day drive.
Yeah.
And like you're in the Great Plains in Iowa and it's just like nothing, which I actually think is super cool too.
It's yep.
Empty. And then all of a sudden you're like, wait, there's this massive, like you see it in the distance and then all of a sudden you're driving it and you're like, oh my God, I love it out there. It's cool. So
it's amazing. So why did you ultimately choose bass? Because you mentioned that you made a comment kind of about that before.
Yeah,
because you're not like right in the front, right? I mean, I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, I guess I've never been. I don't know. Now I'm doing it more often with like some public speaking things, but I've never been so much like a demanding the spotlight kind of guy.
Yeah.
I chose bass because of how different it is, I think I had a contrarian streak when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I remember my dad was a Yankees fan and they had a Subway Series, so I became a Mets fan just because something different, So, I always kind of had a knee jerk against the bandwagon and like everyone wanted to play cello and violin. So I'm like, I'm picking bass. It's weird. It's cool. I think I like the attention that you get. It's just like, wow, you're playing that huge thing, you know? So it's like almost a like inconsequential decision that like now here I am, 30 odd years later, making it my career off of, when I was a kid, it was just like, yeah, looks cool.
That's awesome.
So there wasn't any like, divine like, oh my God, I must play that thing. It just kind of started out that way, and then I fell in love with it.
It's awesome.
Could I ask?
Yeah.
So, and bass usually seems to be in the world of fusion or jazz or funk, and so why classical? What took you to classical?
Right?
Yeah,
I know. Most people, when I tell them I'm a bass player, they assume those things. Jazz usually more often than not. I think again, decisions made for me. I took lessons in the classical repertoire. The school orchestra was kind of in a classical mindset, right? This is kind of the default a lot in school environments. Is like, you're learning, how to use a bow and all of these things, right? And so that kind of became the default. But I mean, I also did play a lot of jazz, and I still do. I'm just not as good at it as I am at classical. And I wish I had more time to like get into, especially like the fusion stuff. I'm playing a lot more electric bass. I was in a metal band in high school.
That's awesome. I was going to ask you if you're ever in bands.
Yeah.
And also like not as good as that, meaning like I'm better than almost everybody, except I'm so good at classical.
Yeah. No, it's kind of like, have you ever seen like Andy Murray plays golf? Actually, that's not a good analogy because Andy Murray is really good at golf, tennis player.
Yeah.
When you see, I was gonna say Josh Allen like at the home run thing, but
I mean, he's amazing at golf too.
Yeah, and he's amazing. It's like I'm not that good. But like you see some of these athletes play other sports, and it's like okay, they're good at it, but they're not specialists. So I think playing bass turned me on to those kinds of music that you mentioned. Because they're so bass heavy, and it's one of my favorite parts about playing bass is just that like I can play so many different kinds of music. I mean, like there's like one guy that plays jazz on French horn, and like good for him, I'm sure, but like that's like not a thing. But for bass, it's like I can wear so many different hats.
Yeah,
and I'm like kind of a perpetual student, so I like to try to learn all those different styles, and I listened to all those different styles of music too. My dad was really big into fusion in particular, so
awesome.
He had a kind of more avant-garde taste in music.
Yeah,
I think that also kind of helped me prime me for all the different kinds of music that I like listening to. That and video games. Video games were big, I think, as a kid. There's some weird music in video games, and so you're exposed to that on loop for hours.
Yeah,
it's like, I think that definitely piqued my musical curiosity and informed my taste. So
that's awesome.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I know I've teased it a couple times, but I got to ask you about getting into Juilliard and like what it was like, because obviously to say it's extremely competitive is like a vast understatement.
Yeah.
So I'd love to kind of hear about the process of getting in and what it was like actually being a student there.
I loved it there. Juilliard has a reputation, I think unfairly, of being like this like hyper competitive, toxic environment where like I heard stories.
Like it's not Whiplash.
It's not Whiplash. Yeah. I couldn't finish Whiplash, I have to say.
It was tough.
And it's just like they overdid it in my opinion. I mean, sure, especially back in the day, there were teachers that kind of had that autocratic attitude.
Yeah.
But like that is not a thing in the 2000s.
Let
alone 2026. And so I just like a lot of movies that take place around like my area of expertise, I always have a tough time.
I get that.
Getting into. Same thing with Tar, the Kate Blanchett movie. I couldn't finish it. It's like, Anyway, that's not the question. I love Juilliard. Getting into Juilliard, I was lucky. There's always luck when it comes in just stuff like this. The year that I went there, they had an insane amount of openings for bass. It fluctuates year to year. They have like a quota. I think there's like 25 bass players that are there at any given time between undergrad, graduate, whatever. So you could do the math. Usually 3 or 4 openings in a year for bass players. My year, for whatever reason, there were I think 13.
Oh. So
I kind of lucked out. And I mean I still had to take the audition and get in. I had. It was tough, like I auditioned for lots of different places. At the time that I went there, I was really interested in there's some other schools that I was really interested in that had like bass players that were getting jobs. And Juilliard is a great school, but at the time there weren't like a ton of bass players getting jobs, so I was like a little bit unsure. It's kind of like, I don't know, I would imagine it's a lot like, picking what school to go to for, football or something, what D1 school that you want to be in. Yeah. But the teacher that I had there, I knew him already. He was great for me. That partnership of teacher and student is the most important. I have students now, and one of whom is a great player and is trying to go into music school, and I keep telling him, like, you got to play for all these different teachers, and it's less about the school and more about who you're getting lessons from every week, and how they kind of help you, inspire you, and all that stuff. So I loved it there, and I got to play with some other instrumentalists. When my first year there, I played this quintet, and the violinists that were in my quintet were students of Itzhak Perlman, who's like this hugely famous violinist, and my friend Jen, she had been going to pre-college. She was from California, but she flew to New York and lived in New York for a few years in pre-college, like as part of going to high school. Basically, she like committed to being in music so much earlier than me. And same with my friend Will. Like these two players were just incredible players who had been eating, living, and sleeping music for way longer than me, and I learned so much from them, being in that environment, just people who had been so much more invested at an earlier age than I was. So, you asked me about its competitiveness, like I said, I lucked out, but I also, I'm not really sure how to explain this. I guess like it didn't faze me too much, which is weird to say in retrospect, because when I go take auditions for orchestras and stuff, I get very nervous. But in that time, it was like I was auditioning for like 8 different schools, and I guess when you dilute it, it doesn't seem as scary.
Sure.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So I always tell people it sounds cooler than it is. You know, everyone's like,
Sounds
oh,
pretty cool.
Juilliard, like that's so sick. And it's like, you know, it's a niche place. It's cool. But it's also like a really small school. And it's a school where, you know, you lock yourself in a practice room for 4 hours a day, you know? So, to me, it feels normal, but I know that it's not.
No, that's okay though. I mean, I love hearing about that. So you said you didn't get nervous auditioning for schools, but you said you get nervous now.
Yeah.
How do you, I think I always love hearing this, whether it's an athlete or someone who's a professional at anything, like how do you deal with the nerves to ensure that almost like you can still perform?
It's a whole different skill set. I like firmly believe this. Your ability to play under pressure and deal with your nerves is like a separate skill set from like, can you play your instrument well?
I agree.
You have to be able to do both. And the only way that you can get better at it is by doing it. Mm-hmm. So I was a junior in college, and I went to this place, Tanglewood Music Center, which is this where Boston Symphony plays. And while I was there was an opening in the Boston Symphony. Boston Symphony is like one of the greatest orchestras in the world. It's, you know, great ensemble. And so all the bass players that were there when I was there as a student were like, oh God, are you going to take the BSO audition? You know, this whole thing. And so that was in the fall, and I had to send in a tape to even be allowed to go audition there, right? And I was lucky enough, I got accepted to go audition. So I go take my first professional audition, and these are insane things. They give you like 5 hours worth of music that you have to prepare, all the biggest, hardest things from the standard repertoire. And then you show up and they ask you to play for 5 minutes. You don't know what 5 minutes is going to be.
Oh, wow.
Right? And you go out, there's a screen between you and the people who are adjudicating you so that they can't discriminate, which is
and you can't see them?
I can't see them. And I'm in a concert hall. This is a symphony hall in Boston, which is like one of the more resonant halls. So like I go out there, I find out like right before I go on stage, we're like, okay, you're going to play like this movement of Bach, and then you're going to play this thing from Mozart, and then you're going to play this thing from Strauss. I can't remember exactly what it was. I'm like, oh, okay.
Huh.
You know, I had never been in this situation before.
Do you have music in front of you, or just all from memory?
I had music in front of me, but you end up memorizing all of this stuff
because
you have to tunnel vision it for like 3 months before you go.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, so I couldn't unlearn these things if I wanted to. You know, I get out there and I sit down and nobody says anything. Right? Of course, it's just like. And it's this huge space. I start playing my Bach, and it's a really like echoey place. So I'm like shaking, and I'm like kind of like having a bad time, and like all of my attitude notes are just like pinging back at me. Like after I remember finishing my last note of this first piece, and it's just like resonating like flat for like a while. I'm just like, oh my God.
Man.
And then I played the next excerpts, and after I finished that, I played for about 4 minutes, and then just somebody from behind the screens goes, thank you. And you're just like, okay. And then you have to go off stage, and that's it, right? And safe to say, I did not advance in that audition. And it was like a really shocking experience. Like I knew it was going to be nervous. I knew it was going to be hard. I had no idea like it's all you think about for months.
Yeah.
And then you drive or fly out to these locations, and here you are in these temples of music that are like sacred, you know, among us classical music fans, right? And, you know, all of a sudden it's like, oh, I have to deliver, you know, and I have to please these people, and I have to play the right way. And it's like, I just got so freaked out. So I resolved then to like figure out how to deal with this. And there's a few books that I read that were really helpful on the subject about, you know, down-regulating your nervous system. A big thing for me is like, not being ashamed of being nervous. Like you should plan on being nervous. It's like a normal, natural thing to have happen. And the trick is to learn how to use the nerves to your advantage. It's just an adrenaline rush, right? So like, how do you like harness that power how do you fight instead of flight, right? It's basically the thing. So, you know, learning how to like find your optimal zone of activation. And you know, I practice a lot, like, what am I going to say to myself a day before the audition, the hour before the audition, 10 minutes before, the minute before, and then the second before I play? Like, I try to have all of those things, like, covered. So, excuse me, so that, like, I feel like prepared. It's an environment that I feel comfortable in. Then my second audition that I took was here.
Were you 20 years old?
I was 20 years old.
Okay.
It was like 8 days before my 21st birthday.
How long was the audition with BPO after Boston?
Boston was in like October and BPO was in April.
Okay.
So I had like 6 months. I found out I was going to come here. They didn't have a pre-screening here, so I was like looking around for auditions. Most people that I went to school with were not auditioning until they were done with their undergraduate. A lot of people get graduate degrees, stay in school for longer. But I was kind of like, I got to learn how to do this. Like, this is the goal, right?
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
like, I'm going to start taking these auditions earlier than most just to get that experience. Because how else am I going to figure out how
Yeah, it's
to
like really hard to
confidence?
like visualize what an experience is going to be like if you haven't actually been through it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to live it. You have to kind of, get your ass kicked by it.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So, Buffalo comes around and I'm just like, I just hope that I don't, fall apart on stage. Yeah, to put it more PG.
Yeah.
And so that was my goal, right? Just like a much lower goal, and play a first round, and I'm freaked out, I'm nervous, but I don't fall apart. I play mostly representative of what my playing was, and we do these auditions in rounds. So like, I advanced. I get to play again tomorrow.
Yeah.
You do these rounds with like 7 or 8 other people, and then they cut you down 2 people per round, get through, and then you do that again the next day, and then So then I found myself in the semifinal round here, and it was like, okay, I'm playing with house money, which I got to figure out how to like feel that way more regularly. That feeling of like, all right, like
Yeah.
I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
So I ended up, honestly, feels like right place, right time. I had a good semifinal, and then all of a sudden I'm down to the last 6 people, and I'm like, oh, like maybe I can do this. Like it just flipped so quickly for me. And that was, 13 years ago.
Wow.
And, I've taken auditions other places and come close, but, it's just such a tough grind.
Yeah.
So.
How I'm curious, so you just mentioned taking auditions other places
Yeah.
while you're on BPO. Is that like encouraged?
Yeah, the orchestra here is, I don't know if I'd say encouraged, but understanding
Yeah.
and respectful.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this orchestra is a great orchestra, no doubt. I mean, I want to make that clear. Like, it's Buffalo has something here that's punches above its weight for sure. I mean, there are bigger cities in this country that have no orchestra, and here we have this like great orchestra that's got a lot of people. We have 75 people in our orchestra, whereas a lot of other orchestras have much smaller groups. So like we have this incredible thing here, and it's part of the reason I'm still here. I mean, I really do like it here. But like I moved here when I was 21. The dream is to be in like a New York Phil or Boston or something like that. One of these orchestras that you grew up listening to. And also, frankly, you earn more money in these places. So the orchestra here is understanding of that. An orchestra like Buffalo is going to have a hard time competing with the budgets that those huge city orchestras are going to have. But, this job has been, like fantastic, and I don't take auditions anymore because like I'm like, I kind of would rather stay here.
Awesome.
There's exciting things going on here
For sure.
that I like being a part of that like I'm not going to get in other orchestras. So that's a testament to this organization. I think that people end up staying here, more often than not.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of other orchestras, at our budget level, they're kind of revolving doors.
Mm-hmm.
People stay here, and I think there's a reason for that.
Is one of the reasons someone named JoAnn Falletta?
I'd say so. Yeah.
Tell me about her.
Yeah. JoAnn's great. So I said earlier about Juilliard that sometimes it has the like this toxic, or some teachers in the back in the day had this like autocratic style. Conductors have that reputation too sometimes. There were some conductors back in the day that were like total autocrats, especially the ones that had long tenures like JoAnn has. Mm-hmm. But JoAnn's done it in a completely different way. She is approachable, down to earth, friendly, kind, I mean, she is, she inspires good playing out of us through, collaboration instead of top down kind of, which I think is huge.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're literally on a podium, right, it's easy in that position to feel like, oh, I can do and say whatever I want, right? But she's so much more deferential, and I think that for an orchestra to play well together, that's actually what's more needed, because like we can kind of play all of these big pieces in our sleep. The question is like, are we gonna like sit up in our chairs a little bit, and really give it 100%, are we going to be inspired and do something that's greater than some of our parts? And that's her job. And I think she does that super well. So,
yeah. I think sometimes, maybe people are intimidated by going to like, say the BPO, right? It has maybe this stigma of being for like the elite or the wealthy. And I think the BPO though has done a really good job of becoming very like welcoming and inviting people from all over the city and all over the area. Can you just speak a little bit about that? Cause I know that you too, I want to obviously get into the organization. You wear a lot of different hats. Yeah. You're not just playing the bass. So I'm just kind of like, you can take it from there, but just kind of curious, like where you guys are and like how you've kind of worked to make it more inviting.
Yeah, I mean, like this is, like I said, this is the big reason why I want to stay here is the BPO does it differently, and this community has a great orchestra for that reason. It is a community orchestra, and I think any of my colleagues who are listening to this might be like, oh, community orchestra, like we're professional. We're a professional orchestra that serves the community, and to your point about stigma and elitism, I do think that the BPO is better than most at, first of all, providing all sorts of different music. I mean, I was looking at some of our stuff next season. We go from playing with one of the greatest pianists, Long, to we're doing a yacht rock show.
Sweet.
Which is a blind spot for me personally, so I'm going to learn some things playing that show. And then we're doing, some Prokofiev, and then we're doing, I can't remember the movie we're doing, but we're doing movie scores, right? Oh, we're doing Coco. I remember now. So it's like, that there's stuff for the people who love classical music. There's stuff for the yacht rock lovers, right? There's stuff for people who, families that want to. So like we try to make Kleinhans a very accessible place. If we were only playing, well, actually, I should say, I don't think classical music inherently is elitist. Just sometimes the culture around it can be. That's something that I really want to break down. So, like, as you alluded to, my many hats. I serve on the board, and I work a lot with the orchestra and its leadership around like what we call concert experience. So, what's the lobby vibe like? Like, are you coming to hang out here, or are you coming just to hear a concert? And we think it's coming to hang out. Like, there's lots that we can do around the concert experience, a well-rounded concert experience that makes it an interesting place. There's an old way of thinking sometimes that like, oh, just the excellence of the music and that these pieces like a Beethoven symphony are just so great. They'll speak for themselves. It'll do all the work that's necessary. I don't buy that. I think that like you can't expect somebody who's not that experienced with classical music to come to a classical concert, sit down and just have that played at them and expect them to just be like, oh my God, it's incredible. Some people will for sure, but not everybody will. So I'm really big on, how can we tailor experiences to people that, will like meet them where they're at if they're feeling intimidated and like help them hear it the way that, we hear it, that we know and love it.
Yeah, that's like almost leads into, I was going to ask you, for those who haven't been, from your perspective, what's like, how would you approach like going to, a show? Yeah.
So, I have to do a shameless plug actually.
Good.
If you're thinking about going to a classical music concert at the BPO, you got to go to the Up Close concerts. This is my baby, so
you're a segue machine.
Yeah, I'm a segue machine. This is great.
Yeah.
say less, John.
I'm here to help you. Yeah, I mean, the reason I bring it up in this very fancy segue that I've just done is that there are like designed to be the onboarding experience.
Okay, cool.
You know, so like if you're curious but you don't know a whole lot and you're not sure that, like a full concert is for you, we have these up close concerts where they're a lot more approachable. So what they are is we do them in the Mary Seton room, which is the other space in Kleinhans. It's just like a big room, and we put the orchestra, we plop them down right in the middle of the room, and we surround the orchestra with you, the audience.
Oh, wow.
And so everyone gets to sit up really close to it, and we have some cool lighting up on the ceiling and stuff. And it's a show where, so this is my baby, if you couldn't tell. I narrate it, so I, will pick, 6 or 7 pieces, none of which are longer than 12 minutes. I try to make it like a little, tasting board of all the different things in classical music, because that's the thing that I think people don't fully understand, is that classical music is like 80 different kinds of music. It's like 500 years worth of music and counting. So there's lots of different stuff. So I try to show lots of different stuff, help you find your jam, so to speak. And try to introduce things to you in a way that will help you I need to listen for this or that detail. And if you don't like it, it's only an hour long, and you get free drinks afterwards. It's great, right? So the idea there is basically just, creating and curating an experience that is going to help meet people where they're at. And, like I said at the top of the show here, I think it's understandable to feel a little bit intimidated around it, but my thesis around the show is that I'm just shining a flashlight on things that you already knew but didn't know how to describe.
Okay.
And
yeah,
that if you once you see it, that detail that I'm trying to show you, that I used to think Mozart was just powdered wig music for fancy elites. There's actually some pretty serious, gnarly stuff going on in here, and now I want to go check out the BPO playing, a full symphony as an example. That's the idea.
That's awesome. So I know you're talking about BPO Up Close, so we're talking about, right, bringing the music or the musicians or the orchestra closer to the audience, to the people. Yeah. And I know we were also talking before we got started about another effort to do this. It's Musicians Nightcaps.
Oh yeah. That's so sometimes after concerts we'll do this where we'll give people a little free glass of wine, and I'll bring down 2 of my friends from the orchestra, interview them, and people can ask us questions. They ask us all sorts of questions, but it's in that theme, like you just said, of I think traditionally orchestras, musicians are a little bit stoic, right? Up there on stage, and we don't wear tails anymore, but we used to wear tails. And it's we're literally elevated, right? And we're looking all so serious, and then we're done with the concert and out, right? Yeah. And I just feel we're cool people. We're interesting people. There's I have some cool people and friends in the orchestra. I think you ought to know them, right? So this is, that's an effort, and I love the questions that we get. People are so curious. I mean, what we do is so weird, it's so strange. The inner workings of, how to tune timpani, or, what it's like to play, big solos as a oboe player, whatever it is, making reeds, all these inside baseball things, people are so curious about. And then even for the big classical music fans, they're so Mahler or Beethoven, what's, it's okay, Mahler. Oh, wait, no, Beethoven. It's just a fun experience. So if you find yourself at one of those concerts with a nightcap, stick around. Plus the parking lot is super full anyway. It's going to take you a while to get out. So you might as well hang out. You might as well hang out, right? Yeah.
What do you think is maybe the biggest thing people are surprised to learn, whether it's through the nightcap or something else?
That's a good question. Honestly, what I've come across a lot in Buffalo is that people are, I've run into a lot of people who are surprised to find out that not everybody in the orchestra is from Buffalo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think there are 2 people in the orchestra from Buffalo.
I was going to say, I got to imagine almost nobody's from Buffalo. Yeah.
We have people from all over the world, that play here. Almost every continent is represented. Yeah. So that's usually one thing. They're once they realize that, then they see it's not everybody on the bills is from Buffalo either, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's the first thing that comes to mind, but I feel like there's a better answer. It'll come to mind.
That's okay.
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear you talk about, from your perspective, it's the night of a show.
Yeah.
Say it's a Saturday night.
Yeah.
what is it like maybe in like the hour or so leading up to it, like the lights are down, like what is the experience like for you from your vantage point?
So you might not like my answer.
It's okay.
So we do these, I play like 130 something concerts a year.
Yeah.
Not all of them are Saturday night shows. Some shows are going to be a little bit more like on edge than others, but it's routine.
Yeah,
it's
well,
routine,
I would imagine it would be,
Yeah.
right? Because like that's what makes you probably so good at it now.
Yeah,
you're not
like-
getting nervous for it, are you?
No,
Yeah.
never. Shows start at 7:30. I'm at home at 6:30, chilling. Probably having dinner or something like that.
Just an hour before.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that would give me anxiety.
Yeah.
Dude, I'd be like in the parking lot.
Yeah.
How many times do you throw up before the show?
Yeah. I'm not Josh Allen. I'm not throwing up before every game. Yeah. I mean, if he had to play 130 games, I don't think he'd be throwing up before every
good
game
point.
either.
Yeah.
No, I mean, so a lot of our shows, it's another night at work for me, but I don't mean to say that in that like I'm like, all right, when is this over kind of thing.
Yeah.
I kind of mean to say it's just like, yeah, I'm going to work, and I'm excited about playing this or that, and there's times where if it's like a particularly hard show, I'll get there a little bit earlier, and I'm like working on my stuff. I usually get there around 7, and warm up a little bit. We have a ping pong table backstage. If I'm there a little bit early and I got some downtime to kill, we're playing doubles ping pong in one of the dressing rooms. It's a great time.
So if people look really closely, they're like sweating in the back when the show starts.
Dude, actually, because like this room down in the basement is like not well ventilated, and it's 4 dudes like having at it right during intermission. In particular, we're like having a lot of matches.
That's awesome.
And yeah, sometimes you go a little bit too long, and then it's just like I'm wearing like tails, and it's like, oh my god, it's actually like a really funny thing. Like we're playing ping pong, and then it's like the bell rings, intermission's over, we got to go back up on stage, and then we go play like a massive Mahler symphony.
Yeah.
And I have to say too, my job as a bass player is a lot different than if you were like a principal wind player. So like as I'm in a section of 7 players, right? And I play an instrument, let's face it, where like, you kind of feel it more than you hear it, right? And if I make a mistake, like nobody's really gonna notice, right? My colleagues will notice, right? But like, and I don't make that many mistakes, but like it's a little bit less high stakes of a situation than if I were our principal oboist or clarinetist, where like, let's say we're playing, track 5, and it's just starts with this long, slow, really, really exposed clarinet solo, or Sibelius 1 or whatever, right? Like, oh God, like I would be terrified doing that, right?
He or
like,
she's not playing ping pong.
Yeah.
Like 10 minutes before.
He is.
Oh wow, that's badass.
Yeah.
Dude, who is this guy?
Insane. It's insane. So his name is Will.
Ice in the veins.
Yeah, dude, he's got ice in his veins. I mean, like, I this is something I talk to them about at Nightcaps, because I'm genuinely curious. Like, when you're playing these solo parts, there was some study where they put like heart rate monitors on like principal wind players in orchestra concerts, and it's like it's spiking like all the time.
I can imagine.
Yeah, it's so intense, and I've also like played a few wind instruments. Like they are so cranky to get good sounds out on. So to come in on this like really quiet thing, and like your heart rate's up there, it's just like insane. It's absolutely insane. And yeah, he's ripping forehands on the ping pong table before that. Sometimes, not all the time.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So it's like it's very much routine for us, I guess, would be the answer. If I'm playing a solo, it's a different ballgame entirely. So if I'm playing like a recital or a concerto or something where it's like I'm very exposed, then it's like I'm getting there an hour before. I'm warming up. I'm like doing my pregame mental warm up stuff and like getting in the zone.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Those are very different experiences.
Makes a lot of sense.
As part of the orchestra.
Yeah.
I feel comfortable.
Is there a point like when I love watching live music, and I love watching really practiced musicians who are in the flow and can just deliver?
Yeah.
Are there nights when you're up there with 75 people and the director, and it's like we're all together and it's all working all at the same time? You can feel it.
That's why I'm there.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's gonna be an adrenaline
100%.
rush. Yeah.
Yeah. It's I said a religious experience earlier. You know, I alluded it to a religious experience in that, like, you know, you're kind of coming to terms with this bigger thing. But I also think part of the religious experience is, you know, the community aspect of it. You're doing it with other people, right?
Yeah.
And there's something just so human about, you know, an orchestra of 75 just like giving it their all on a piece of music that somebody wrote. You know, when it doesn't matter when. You know, I think about, like, I love Beethoven as an example, and I think to write a symphony is like such a personal thing, you know, like if you're writing a symphony, you're kind of exposing like your innermost feelings and deepest things out into the world, right? And so it's a bold thing to do. And then if you have an orchestra of 75 people playing a Beethoven symphony and giving it their all, like that music comes alive, that spirit and the intent of the composer comes alive, and you kind of like understand that human so well. And then you have the human experience of all these people like working together, like sweating to play out, and yeah, there's nothing else quite like it, you know. I mean, I'm like you too, where I love seeing those musicians in the flow, you know, and this is that on a bigger scale, you know. So it's yeah, it's a special thing.
It's awesome.
It's addicting.
So obviously, you know, the BPO takes up a ton of your time. I mean, you're playing in the BPO, you're on multiple committees.
Yeah.
Like we talked about BPO Up Close, Musicians Nightcaps. You have a lot going on, but you also take a lot of time to teach.
Yeah, I love teaching.
I want to talk to you about that because your YouTube channel is really cool.
Oh, cool. I haven't updated it in a while.
It's okay though, but I went and checked it out.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw you playing like Daft Punk, and I was like, "This is sick." It's awesome. But like, I mean, that obviously, you know, you're teaching private lessons.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that because it sounds like you really enjoy doing that.
Yeah, I really like doing it. I feel an obligation to like play it forward.
Yeah.
You know, I had some great teachers when I was younger. Joe Russo out in Connecticut, Kurt, my teacher in college, Al Laszlo. They all had like such an impression on me. I'm sure we can all think of like, you know, school teachers that were like that we really bonded with that like helped you mature and grow up. And I think that there's something really special about the relationship between in a musical setting with student and teacher, private lessons. It's so one-on-one. You can make for good or bad, you can make an impression on somebody, you know, a young person. And I think that especially like I think it's an important thing to do in my position, you know, to pass it forward that way. And I like helping people like succeed, you know. At its core, teaching is like helping somebody overcome some kind of problem, grow as an individual, and kind of like be a role model for them too, you know. So yeah, it's, you know. Sometimes, you know, I'm not really feeling it. I feel like work. And every time I'm like that, where I'm like, oh, I got to teach a few lessons today. Like, I kind of would rather sit on the couch. Every time I go into those lessons, and the next thing you know, I'm out of it. And it's like, I had a great time, you know, like it's always reinvigorating for me. So even when I'm like dreading it, it's like once I'm in it, it's just like there's a flow going on for me. So
dude, it's funny you say that. Like, and then you're gonna answer in a lap. I swear to God, I'm not talking about this morning. Like sometimes, you know, we'll have a podcast and like it has nothing to do with the guest. I just have a million things going on. I'm like, okay, we got to do this. But the second the person walks in, I'm like, yes. I'm like, wow, I get to do this.
It's
like,
exciting.
That's really cool. Like, get to have a cool
like,
conversation.
Cool,
like if you told like 22-year-old me, like, this is what your life is going to be like as a lawyer when you're 42, I'd be like, what? Are you sure I'm a lawyer?
I'm so glad you feel that way.
Yeah. But I will say though, that's a really, you've mentioned this a couple times, but it is true. Like, I mean, a lot of people who listen are people who can have a really positive influence on people. And before you came in today, I was thinking about like my life, like going back as a kid, right, we were all forced to play an instrument. Yeah. And I played the alto saxophone, right? But only for like a few years. And I think back, I'm like, why did I actually really stop? Because like my parents were like, no, don't stop. Don't stop. My dad loves music. My mom loves music. And I just think that like, I'm not gonna name any names, but these people are not listening to this. But they did a terrible job of like showing how cool being a musician is. Yeah. Right? Like there's no like showing like, hey, this is what you could do as an alto saxophone player. Or what, you know, there's a lot of different, right? You know, there was none of that. I actually think it's like the one, as proud as my parents are of me. The other, this is not a joke. Like 2 weeks ago, maybe
Really?
a little bit longer,
They
all
still
of a
bring up
sudden
the
my
alto sax?
alto saxophone showed up at
Oh,
my house.
yeah.
Hey John, so we've kept this for all these years. You know, it wouldn't be that bad if you picked it up again. I'm like, Mom, I was
Yeah.
like in 6th grade.
It's because they pay good money for it, you know?
But
It's
so
still
many
sitting there.
people, when they see
Yeah.
as an adult, see musicians playing, like, God, I wish I
Yeah.
would have
Yeah,
stuck
there's a,
with
I think
that.
that's
all
a
the time.
huge
Yeah.
point of regret for like a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's hard to maintain. I got to say, like, maintaining playing an instrument as a hobby, like, you really got to find groups of people to play with. It's kind of like, you know, I really wanted to learn French, and I was like doing my Duolingo like an hour a day. I was like all about it, right? And I got like kind of good at it, but then I have nobody to talk to, and eventually I don't use it anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think the same is for learning an instrument. It's like, you know, learning it is in service of some other result, right? Of like being able to play it or do things with it, right? But if you don't have those opportunities, then it's hard to sustain.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, music is really meant to be played with other people. Unfortunately, you have to put all this time in by yourself
Yeah.
to learn it. But yeah, it's I people tell me that all the time, like, oh, like I played this instrument when I was a kid, and then I gave up on it or whatever. When I was first learning bass, I was also taking piano lessons, and I convinced my parents to let me quit. And I regret that so hard because like being a good pianist is such a great skill to have too, on the side as a orchestral musician. But to your point about quality of teachers and how they inspire you, so like I said, I was a huge soccer player. I played soccer and I went to all the like summer camps and I played in every league from when I was like 6 all the way up until I was 18, and I just wasn't that good. Like, I mean, I'm a competent player, right? But I think back to the coaching that I was getting, and like nobody taught me how to practice soccer.
Yeah.
And I'm like so annoyed by that to this day. Like the teachers that spoke to me were people who taught me how to get better and helped me do that, like, and like, see the results. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I have this ceiling that's like so much higher than I thought, and I'm motivated to get there. I wish I had that for sports.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
I hear you. Oh man, that's a great point. I was going to go a different direction, but you know what I was going to ask you? Because you mentioned, and I'm glad you said something about, quitting the piano. Was there ever a point in time, in now I guess we'll call it your career as a bassist, where you almost quit?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to hear about that, because you get that from people who are like, wait, really? You
Yeah.
almost quit? Like,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Like, did you have to have a fall? Like, did your folks say, "Do you have a fallback?"
Yeah,
you know, like, is
well,
that-
in terms of a fallback, I mean, from the beginning, as the second I decided to go to a school like Juilliard, it was like, are you sure you don't want to
Like all the
yeah.
chips are
yeah,
in.
yeah. I mean, it's a leap of faith, man. Like,
Yeah.
So one of the schools I could have gone to was Northwestern, which is like
Great
just
school.
a great school, and they have a great music program. And I loved it there. That campus is awesome.
Chicago's awesome, yeah.
Chicago's awesome. Like, I really liked it there, and I vibed with the teacher when I took the audition, and I liked it there a lot. And I was a little bit unsure at the time whether I really wanted to go all in or not.
Yeah.
Like, my parents were really definitely speaking the book of like, if it doesn't work out, like, you kind of don't have skills on the side, right?
Yeah.
So I was kind of contemplating. I thought Northwestern kind of thread that needle the right way. I found out that the teacher there wasn't going to be there anymore. I didn't know who the teacher I was going to be studying with anymore if I were to go. And it's like, well, that's kind of a deal breaker. I can't.
Yeah.
I need to know. So I ended up going to Juilliard instead because I knew the teacher there was really great. And I was like, this is one of the most like mature decisions I've ever made. And I was 18 years old. I was like, if I don't go for it now, I might regret it later. And now is the time to take these chances, which is absolutely right. When you're that age, I mean, I'm kind of like an anxious person sometimes. So like, I like to plan things out.
Yeah.
That was like such a leap of faith into the unknown, right?
Mm-hmm.
My parents would not let me forget it. It was always kind of like, oh, you're going to be in the McDonald's orchestra, because like finding a job as a musician is this hyper competitive process,
Yeah.
right? And I was really lucky that I got a job as early as I did, again, right place, right time. But, for a lot of people, it takes a long time. Some people, I'm 34 now. Some people are winning their first jobs at 34, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and they're gigging around and all this stuff. It's a tough way to make a living, frankly. So, to answer your question, I mean, there's been lots of times where I'm like, I don't know if this is the right thing for me. I mean, there's so much that I love about the career, and like I said, it's addicting. But then there's other times where like I want to explore new things, and I think that's a natural thing. I've worn a lot of hats. I like doing coding. I've made websites.
Sweet.
I did the YouTube thing for a little bit. That's like I like getting into cameras and lighting and all that stuff. I learned that I like video editing.
Cool.
And I
wanna
work with
work
Brenda
here?
on that. Yeah, sure.
No
yeah.
offense, guys. Look out.
So I've contemplated changing things up, but the job is so great because I'm allowed to have some other pursuits in my free time. So I can have this great job where I get to play all the time, and then explore other hobbies.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Best of both worlds. So as we kind of near the end here, like, what are you most excited about for the next season of the BPO? The floor is yours.
There's so many great things that we're doing. So obviously my Up Close concerts, October 30th. Come be there.
All right.
And we have 2 of them. There's one in the spring as well. I don't remember that date.
Brett,
so
we should get tickets.
Yeah. I'll hook you.
Guys night out.
Yeah.
Send me an invite. Let's go.
I'll hook you guys up.
Awesome. All right.
I'll get you
Appreciate it.
tickets.
Yeah.
It's the least I can do. And then, our season opener with Long Long, he's just like in the classical music world, he's kind of like a Josh Allen level figure.
Awesome.
He's an incredible pianist, so not to be missed. And then we do like all sorts of different stuff. So, for me, it's a nerd out. Like I love, like Prokofiev symphonies. So we're doing Prokofiev 5 in the spring. Like I love that symphony so much. Might not be for everybody, but like for me, it's my jam for sure. And then we do so many concerts. So like I should be better versed in some of the stuff we're doing. We're doing a Beethoven festival at the end of the season. So that's like a new thing that we're doing where we're going to do like 2 different programs in the same week. So you can get like a lot of the different music that he wrote. So we're going to kind of like sample more of his music at the end of the season. And I think that is too, like if you're a little bit unsure about classical music, like Beethoven is usually a sure bet of just like, it usually speaks to most people. He's very popular for a reason. So, there's like tons of great stuff. It's all on the website. I mean, there really is something for everybody.
Yeah.
Like I said, like we have the Yacht Rock show, we have the movies, we do all sorts of education shows that I really like doing.
It's like you're doing some kind of Stones tribute, or
Yeah,
you're
we're
playing
doing
the
a
Rolling
Stones tribute.
Stones.
Yeah.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, that's not as much of a blind spot for me. I was like a Led Zeppelin, Jimi Hendrix guy growing up,
Awesome.
but I mean that's right
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So that'll be fun. I
Awesome.
like doing those shows. Yeah.
Awesome. So we're, obviously everyone knows where they can go follow BPO. Where can they follow you? Do you have social media handles? Or?
J Borden Bass is my Instagram handle. I'm not as active as I should be.
It's okay.
I think it's the same for my YouTube channel.
Yeah.
I'll get more stuff out there eventually.
You should. I
Yeah.
mean, look, I know it's hard, and like I'm lucky because I
Yeah.
have a team that helps me. But I will tell you,
Yeah.
your stuff's good, and I think
Thanks,
you have a
man.
way of like communicating with people.
I
that
like doing it.
that
I like
you should
figuring
lean
out
into
that
it.
puzzle
Yeah.
of like how to communicate effectively. It's fun.
Well,
Yeah.
dude, thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having
Appreciate
me.
it.
This is
Yeah.
great.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right.